This channel is made possible by support from viewers like you. Thank you. Hello, LGBTQ and esteemed guests. So I do a lot of serious stuff on this channel, and I thought it might be fun for once to do something, fun. So here is a video where I read Goodreads reviews of books that I love. I've got some compiled, and let's give it a go. Starting things off with one of my all-time favorites, it's The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. Diana says, I read absolutely everything with a critical feminist lens. Excellent work. And as such, I always appreciate the female characters. However, Williams' misogyny runs so deep that I can't appreciate Laura or Amanda. Diana, thank you. That's a very interesting take. I think part of what Williams is attempting to do is point out how horrible it was that there were women who couldn't marry and couldn't go to work and got stuck in this really terrible dependent limbo. Malum says, pretentious and boring. It reads like an alien who knows a lot about overblown drama but very little about actual human behavior wrote it. Yeah, I gotta give you that one, Malum, you're not wrong. It's a play that has very little to do with glass animals. Therefore, I lost interest quickly. Did Laura Wingfield herself write this review? Seems like the animals in the Glass Menagerie are some sort of symbolism, but I'm not in grade school anymore and I am not going to waste my time figuring out exactly what it is. Right, because as we all know, themes are for 8th grade book reports. Moving on to A Streetcar Named Desire. Climax was too predictable from the moment the three characters met, especially Blanche and Stanley. There were too many hints. Okay, you're gonna have to be more specific about what the climax constitutes, because if you're talking about the being too predictable, well, it is heavily foreshadowed. Tennessee Williams wants you to know that it's going to happen. I mean, at the climax of the play, he literally says, we've had this date with each other from the beginning, so it being too predictable. When people complain about a piece of media being too predictable, I'm often just like, so you agree? There's themes. Madison writes, no, heart emoji. Same. Yura writes, I mean, let's look at these characters. Stanley, he's a complete and utter douchebag. Yes, he is. Blanche is a hot mess. That's such an awesome way to describe that character. Yes, you have to feel bad for her because she had a breakdown, and those are not fun. But keep it together. Come on, girl. Oh yeah, that's exactly what Blanche Dubois needed. Not the kindness of strangers, but for someone to be like, I know you're having a mental breakdown right now, and those are not fun, but girl, keep it together.
I just don't see why Blanche should shove a broken bottle in Stanley's face. Couldn't she just take his abuse with gentle good humor?
I feel like if a teenage girl would read this and her boyfriend would be like Stanley, she'll think that it's okay to let him hit her occasionally as long as he says he still loves her. I mean, I feel for you, and I'm really sorry if this is something that you've seen or experienced. That said, Stanley is framed, although somewhat sympathetically, as the villain of Streetcar Named Desire, so when villains do bad things, it's usually not good. Like, I hate that I have to say this, but a work of fiction having something bad in it does not mean that that work of fiction is condoning the bad thing that is in it. If the villain of a play is abusive to women, generally what the author is trying to say is, hey, don't abuse women, that's bad. I've seen this play and read the script twice due to coercion from a professor who thinks it's okay to torture students. You mean the curriculum? Like, don't get me wrong, I've definitely had creepy professors before, but I don't think your professor is trying to torture you by making you read one of the most popular plays of the 20th century. Like, it's not coercion, it's the class material. Blanche is described to be a moth, a creature known for being an irritant to humanity as it nibbles away at the linens, and Stella is absurd. I know weak women exist in the world. I know brutish men exist in the world, but why perpetuate those personality types by showing them win? Because it's a tragedy. Like Stanley, once more, is the bad guy. So him winning is the whole tragedy of it. They're not rewarding him. Tennessee Williams isn't saying, oh, it's so awesome that Stanley won, that'll show Blanche Dubois. It's like, oh my gosh, all she needed was people to be nice to her. I don't understand. This book is similar to The Great Gatsby, but at a higher rating to me. This is a higher rating than The Great Gatsby at 1 star? Okay. The stage directions made for a more compelling read than the characters. Ouch, but yeah, Tennessee Williams has rad stage directions. Can we go back to The Great Gatsby now? I missed that book already. You guys. There were other books written in the early 1900s than The Great Gatsby. You guys. The writing was fair, but I really couldn't see this being performed on stage or in a cinematic adaptation. Well, do I ever have some bad news for you that this play has been not only done and performed, but revived many times. They've made a movie, 2 movies? I mean, it's ubiquitous. That's literally Marlon Brando in the film adaptation. It felt more like a fan fiction-like sequel to The Great Gatsby than anything else. Which is funny, because my English teacher constantly compares this to The Great Gatsby. Clearly, I'm in the minority here. Let's take a look at some poetry. I'm a huge fan of Zachary Schomburg. I was able to meet him when he was doing a tour type thing for this collection. It was a great time. He was a super nice guy. He wrote me a lovely note inside of this very book, so let's see what people have to say. I'll pull one from here first so you can see what his style is like. I'll get on a llama. I'll get on a llama just to see where it takes me, throwing my foot now over its spine. Oh no, just as I suspected. Melissa writes, here's my impression of Zachary Schomburg poem. You and I ate cheeseburgers with ketchup in a wolf-run diner in the middle of the woods. Only there were no wolves. There was no diner. There was no ketchup. That's sick as hell, dude. Melissa, have you considered going into poetry? Because that was super great. I'd read that. No, but really, I understand your criticism, but I just find his style refreshing as hell. William Butler Yeats, The Collected Poems. Olivia says, Yeats is a pussy boy, and no You're not wrong. Like, Yeats is a simp. Composing myself. Yeats is a pussy boy, and No Second Troy is objectively the worst thing ever written. Sorry to be a hater. Well, at least you're sorry. J. Chad writes, yes, let's hear from a real Chad. Bad meter, weak rhyme, most overrated poetry of all time. Bars. Let's do 100 Years of Solitude, since it is one of the most universally celebrated books of all time. It won the Nobel Prize. So pretty well loved. Ben writes, shut the fuck up. That's the whole review. Warning, this review contains foul, angry language with S***RS, which I'm really hoping means that she's going to be employing swears and not slurs. What the flippin' heck did I just read? Honestly, alternative titles. 100 years of reading you'll never get back. 100 years of your life you'll never get back. 50,000 mentions of 2 names. 525,600 recommends it for people I don't like. I'm convinced that the author is just making shit up as he goes. Yeah, I think that's how writing works. Laura writes, more like 100 years of torture. I read this in a partially misguided attempt to expand my literary horizons, and partly because my uncle was a big fan of Gabriel García Márquez. Then again, he also used to reread Ulysses for fun.
Well, off to visit your
uncle. Laura, I'm very sorry, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, because it sounds that you are writing about your uncle who has since passed on. I just want to say that I would like to meet him in heaven. And if there's anyone else out there who loves Gabriel García Márquez and rereads Ulysses for fun, my number is 502. Yeah, it's really not a lot to ask for to want a literature nerd who's read both of those books and loved them, but Oh, this one looks promising. Hey YouTube, I'm editing, and I just wanted to let you know that this is the part of the video where I meet the person who I will doubtless have to duel someday, and could very well be my nemesis. So, just a heads up, it goes on for a little bit too long, so here's a timestamp if you want to skip past all that. If you, like me, grew up reading marvelous books like Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, Twilight, The Hunger Games, which are all extremely strong in terms of characterization and character development, and which are at times trashed by the same critics that praised this piece of crap. Oh, we don't have time to unpack all of that. Wow. There's nothing wrong with liking any of those books, you know, YA. I mean, Percy Jackson is cool. From all accounts, Rick Riordan is a really cool guy. He once liked one of my reviews of a Gabriel García Márquez book on Goodreads, so that's funny.
Take that!
I'm not gonna bash on Twilight or the Hunger Games. Admittedly, I've got a really soft spot for Twilight, but, you know. So here are the things she lists having issues with. No plot, everything is a messy mix of twisted, and I mean twisted, disturbing, cringe-inducing family anecdotes. Okay, I thought that sentence was gonna end with, like, not family anecdotes. Welcome to my dark, twisted family anecdote. Thanksgiving dinner just got f***ing real. No character development. I mean, okay, I disagree, and also it takes place over the course of over 100 years. It has like a whole family of characters to develop, so. Other than I know that Amaranta is somehow fierce, it's difficult to describe the rest of the characters' personalities. What are their goals? What do they want? What do they fear? Who are they? What are their motivations? I mean, I don't know, right off the top of my head,
Objection!
Jose Arcadio Buendia, the very first one, he is an explorer and a scientist, and he sets off into the world to find things. And it's his obsession with modernity that actually kind of dooms the Buendias from the very start, because he essentially engages on a quest for perpetual motion, which is a physical impossibility, sinking himself into madness. And then when he becomes a ghost, he becomes the physical manifestation of past and present and future, all overlapping on top of each other, all of science and nature meeting at last. And I don't know, I love the characters in this book so much, and I feel like they are very strongly developed. Poor world building. How am I supposed to know how Macondo, the setting of this book, looks like? Well, Colombia is a real place, and I think you need to understand that a lot of what happens in this book is real Colombian culture. I mean... The rules of this world don't seem to follow a logic either. It's like Garcia Marquez just smokes weed and then adds whatever he saw when he was under the effects of the weed to add magical elements here and there. I'm literally begging you to please Google what magic realism is. I rarely notice world building issues in my reads because I have a strong imagination. Press X to doubt. I should have tried to convince my professor to change this assignment. Woof. I should have told him that this kind of topics are potential PTSD triggers for me, or that they are against my religious beliefs. That had been a lie, but I wish I had lied. Oh my god. Woof. I mean, you know, there you have it. Of course you didn't like the book. You don't respect other people's religious beliefs. You know, you don't respect other cultures, so maybe it wouldn't have worked and I'd still be stuck to read this horrible book. But these professors should be more responsible when assigning this kind of disturbing readings and forcing people to read them, taking away our sacred right of do not finish a book we don't enjoy.
Taking away our sacred right of do not finish a book we don't enjoy.
Sacred right.
Wow.
I'm aware that the author won a Nobel Prize, but it seems to me like it was more like the Academy thought it'd be rebellious and edgy to give an award to this author, leaving other more talented authors out, therefore steering controversy. Wow. Wow, 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 okay, wow, okay. Sort of like they did when they gave Bob Dylan the Nobel Prize. There are definitely examples you could have picked before that. Good grief. I don't even know who's supposed to enjoy this book. I think that some Hispanic readers might find something good in this book. Well, I'm not Hispanic, so I can't say, but yes, I do get the impression that Gabriel García Márquez is beloved in Latin America. Just a hunch. Also, the opening line of this book is supposedly a matter of study in English literature courses around the world. I can see why some readers might find that intriguing and get hooked from there, but I see a lot of great books with opening lines and paragraphs in commercial literature. For context, the opening line of 100 Years of Solitude is, many years later as he faced the firing squad, Colonel Aureliano Buendia was to remember that distant afternoon when his father took him to discover ice. I would love to hear what kinds of opening lines she thinks are better than that one. Angel Fall by Susan E.E., Divergent by Veronica Roth, Maze Runner by James Dashner have strong opening lines that get you hooked.
I don't know what I expected.
Once more, if you love YA, that's awesome. But You seriously think that the opening line from Divergent is better than 100 Years of Solitude? Dude, I gotta look this shit up. The opening line of Divergent is, I stare into my own eyes for a moment. Today is the day of the aptitude test. That will show me which of the 5 factions. It's good and all, it's just that... Okay, I'll break it down for you. The reason that so many readers and critics and literary scholars are so obsessed with it is because it begins with the words many years later. And I'm doing the English translation here, obviously, which is throwing you in media res, right into the middle of the action. So there's that. As he faced the firing squad. So you know that this character, from the very first line of the book, is going to be killed in a very dramatic fashion, probably for something very severe that he's done. And that's like 6 or 7 words into it. Colonel Aureliano Buendia was to remember, we're in the future, looking back on the past. So Garcia Marquez is establishing how time works in this novel. He's establishing that it is not entirely linear. He's establishing that characters are going to be looking back and looking forward, and these things can all happen at the same time. But the main thing is that he is discovering ice. But, like, you can't discover ice because ice has already existed. It's comparable to how, like, Columbus didn't really discover America. The Americas already existed. The later Colonel Aureliano Buendia, he'd never seen ice before, but that doesn't mean that it didn't already exist. So just in the very first sentence, you've got this post-colonial motif. You've got the establishment of how time works. You've got the promise that something serious and exciting is going to happen to this character. I just really don't know what else you could ask for, and I don't think it's comparable to Divergent. You know, it's not just about grabbing your attention. It's about establishing everything that's going to be in the novel. I think I'm going crazy. So then she gives advice about, like, what to do if you're forced to read this book. Forced. Love that. Expect a lot of magical elements, but not the kind of magic that makes you want to live in this world. Again, Colombia is a real place, just a reminder. Expect a lot of misogynism. Sick. It's like the author comes from ancient times or the Taliban, and his views on women are... Whoa. Oh my god. And then she concludes it with, I think the author, may he rest in peace. Okay. The things you've said about this man might have written it under the effects of weed. I would just like to ask you what you think weed does. Okay.
You have defeated the evil that was here.
We're gonna breathe. I'm interested to move on to Love in the Time of Cholera. As I detailed in my essay on it, which, you know, linked and everything. I didn't like Love in the Time of Cholera the first time I read it because I really needed to internalize its messages. And then I decided to reread it because I was in a better headspace and I fell in love with it. So I understand if people don't like this book. I don't like this book. I don't like the characters. Excellent. You're on the right track. Florentino Ariza is a baby. If he lived today, he'd be one of those emo kids with dyed black hair and the eyeliner and the journals full of bad poetry. All nobody gets me. Sounds to me like you got the book, like you totally understood it. I grew impatient with him fairly quickly. I wanted to wring him by the neck and yell, get over it. I have no tolerance for that kind of behavior. I really like her. She's got her head like screwed on straight. It sounds like she has really healthy relationships. And she also says that she liked the doctor, and she was sad that he died in the first chapters. She's cool. Ryan writes, love is not a one-sided emotion. It is created in the air directly between 2 people, or more than 2 people, as it's sometimes, but rarely the case. It is not simply eating roses and writing poetry to someone always sitting across the courtyard. It is created between 2 people in a physical time and space. It is temporal. It is tangible. Ryan, please argue with me if I have this wrong. Detail me for the ways in which this is a real love story. Ryan, you are a sweetheart. This is a, compared to 100 Years of Solitude, this is a very wholesome little comment section. Tell me that Marquez was possibly even satirizing the idealized but intangible love. I'm not goading here. I actually want to believe I'm wrong about this. Hey Ryan, so yes, he was satirizing. Thank you for writing your beautiful prose about how love isn't sitting across a courtyard from someone eating roses. It's this tangible thing. Thank you, that was beautiful. I want to look at the diary of Anaïs Nin. I read all of her diaries when I was a teenager, and I was like, oh, there are people in the world like me. I didn't even know I was bisexual until I was like 19, so whoa. I could not finish this book. The author overanalyzed everything and everybody. I quickly tired of her rambling. It's a diary. It's her own intimate, personal diary. Okay. We get it, Anaïs. You are a heterosexual. Like, we really get it. Anaïs Nin was not, A, was so not heterosexual, and B, wrote this book that they like turned into a movie. It's like her most well-known work about her relationship with a woman and a man at the same time. So we get it, Oscar Wilde, you're heterosexual. Like, so let's look at Cyrano de Bergerac. I kind of don't care if it's like a new translation. I don't care if it's, you know, the original or the old work. For me, the concept of this is what gets to me. So this person writes, okay, here's the summary of what is supposed to be good literature. A very ugly man, Cyrano, falls in love with his cousin, which was very common at the time. Said cousin, Roxanne, falls for a man named Christian. Christian, so desperate to be loved that he can't form sentences around her, accepts an offer from Cyrano, a poet, to write romantic letters to her, so she thinks it's from him. How on earth is this romantic? Really? You have someone falling in love with his cousin. I know it was common in those times, but still. And a man pretending to be something he isn't. Where is this romance? I'm devastated. I'm destroyed. I probably can't think of a work that, I mean, really? Okay, the James McAvoy production of this, it's a modern translation adaptation, but nonetheless, there's this beautiful monologue where he's sitting alone, feeding words to Christian. And he chastises himself in that moment because he realizes that if he really were with her, there would be no words that would be enough. There would only be actions. Oh my God, you guys. Because poetry is not enough. For the first time in his life, he realizes that if he truly loves her, he will have to be rendered speechless. And that the only words he could possibly say are the two simplest words, which are, I want. There is no poetry. There is no structure except I want. And it's like the most, Y'all are probably watching this video and like, oh, these are all her favorite books, and now I know exactly who she is. You know nothing about me, just to reiterate. What you guys don't know about me actually is that I'm just the Christian of this channel, and there is a Cyrano behind the scenes. There's someone coming up with the words I'm supposed to say. Okay, like, you know, I mean, I don't know. Where's the romance? Where's the romance? If you can watch that whole monologue where James McAvoy sits alone and says, I want you, Roxanne, without like feeling things, maybe your romance button is broken. I don't know. No offense if it doesn't do it for you, but it makes me deeply sad. Okay. I want to wrap this up in exactly the way you guys would expect with James Joyce's Ulysses. I can't do it. It fell in my toilet and didn't dry well, and I'm accepting it as an act of God. I decided against burning it and just threw it out. Guess I'm a horrible person. That's hilarious. James Joyce would like that, I think. I mean, it might be a little disappointed in you, but I think that it's very in the spirit of Ulysses for the top negative review of the book to be like, I can't do it, it fell in the toilet. Okay, one more and then I'm done. Ulysses, touted as the greatest novel of the 20th century by critics, is in my opinion the worst book ever written. I read it a couple months ago and it's a book that's only memorable at all because the last 70 or so pages of the book are one massive indecipherable sentence. Well, Ethan, in the words of James Joyce and Molly Bloom, yes. Stop it! Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you'd like more content like this in the future, just goofy and irreverent, I would definitely be interested in sprinkling a bit of that in there with the more serious stuff. I'm currently attempting to afford life as a student in this pandemic. If you'd like to help me pay for what I do on this channel, you can always become a supporter of mine on Patreon, and I thank my patrons so much for all of your generosity. All right, kids, have a great one. I'll see you next time.